Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Steve Edwards. Today we commemorate the anniversary of the battle for Shaggy Ridge. After turning back a Japanese invasion on the Kokoda Trail and Milne Bay in 1942, Australian and US forces began offensive actions in New Guinea in 1943. After the 9th and 7th Divisions seized Nadzab, Salamaua and Lae in September 1943, the 9th Division was then landed at the eastern end of the Huon Peninsula, securing Finschhafen in preparation to begin clearing inland. The next objective for the Australians was Shaggy Ridge, a 6.5 kilometre long spur standing 1,700 metres high, dotted by several rocky outcrops, which the Australians named Green Pinnacle, the Pimple, Green Sniper's Pimple, and McCoy's Knoll. There was a single track along the ridgeline, which in places was barely wide enough for one man to pass, with sheer drops on either side. It was described by one soldier as a one-man front. By the 20th of October, a company of the 2nd 27th Battalion, under the command of Lieutenant Bob Clampett, had established a toehold on the southern slopes of the ridge. Clampett had the nickname Shaggy, and it was after him that the features became known. Daily patrols probing Japanese positions around the Pimple revealed that a frontal assault on the single track running along the ridge was the only option. After a preliminary assault on forward positions in late December 1943, the Australians renewed their assault in mid-January 1944 and over the course of a fortnight's bitter fighting eventually captured the Japanese positions on Shaggy Ridge. The capture of Shaggy Ridge cost the Australian 18th Brigade 46 killed and 147 wounded. Between September 1943 and April 1944, the 7th Division and supporting units lost 204 killed and 464 wounded in New Guinea. Many more were also lost to illness and tropical disease. Today, we pay our respects to the men and women commemorated here on the Roll of Honour and to the survivors who return home. This evening, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Now, if you're able, I invite you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Australians, oh let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Ronald Richard Veivers. Ronald Veivers was born in Mareeba, Queensland on the 24th of June 1921, the son of Robert and Lillian Veivers. Known as Ron, he grew up amid a large family in the small hamlet of Myola, located on the Corunda River northwest of Cairns. Ron Veivers went on to work as a stockman until the 25th of August 1942, a few months after he turned 21 years old, when he enlisted in the 2nd Australian Imperial Force. Joining a training battalion, he was initially allotted to the 2nd 25th Battalion, but in May 1943 transferred to the 2nd 12th Battalion. The battalion was then in Australia, having earlier deployed to New Guinea, taking part in the Australian counterattack at Milne Bay, which resulted in the first major defeat of the Japanese of the war, the invasion of Goodna Island, a successful attack on Europa Point on New Year's Day 1943, and then actions around Sanananda. Private Veivers joined his new unit at camp in Ravenshoe, Queensland, where the men trained and reorganised and received reinforcements. In August 1943, Veivers and the 2nd 12th Battalion were sent to Port Moresby, where the 7th Division was defending approaches to Lae from Japanese forces. On the 31st of December, the battalion was committed to the fighting in the Finisterre Mountains, along with the 2nd 9th and 2nd 10th Battalions and the 15th Brigade of the Militia, replacing the 21st and 25th Brigades, which had been fighting since September. As the 2nd 9th Battalion continued the battle on Shaggy Ridge, the 2nd 10th advanced and occupied the enemy's attention. The 2nd 12th Battalion took advantage by venturing along the Mean River to the west of Shaggy Ridge, creeping unnoticed towards a 75mm mountain gun that had been pounding the 2nd 9th Battalion. As the men came within 100 metres of the gun, it was turned on them, firing across a small gully at point-blank range. Shells burst in the tree canopy above, wounding and maiming many. The mountain gun was eventually knocked out by a direct assault across the gully, but not before it had caused immense damage. 13 members of the 2nd 12th Battalion were killed and 48 wounded. The gun had been silenced too late in the evening to allow for the evacuation of the wounded, who would have to spend the night on the mountain before making their way back down to the valley floor, but not before repelling a nighttime Japanese assault. Among the dead was Private Ronald Richard Veivers. He was 22 years old. Initially buried near where he fell, he was later reburied in Dumpu War Cemetery and then Lae War Cemetery, where his remains lie today under the epitaph, "Thy duty nobly done, rest in peace." His name is listed on the roll of honour on the left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Ronald Richard Veivers, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the growing down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.